Welcome to another Brewster podcast. In our off-season series, we'll be talking about the trades that happened in the off-season this time. And Tyler Simmons is back with me to discuss that. My usual trade partner. I think it's been a while since we've done one of these. Welcome back, Tyler.
Oh, thanks for having me, Ted. Yeah, it's been probably like two in-game seasons.
Yeah, I know, like almost a calendar year, right?
Yeah.
Or something, not quite. Who knows? So I think it was kind of not that busy of a trading off-season. I don't know. What do you think? I thought it was a little slow.
Yeah. It's really interesting. I think I had like 30% of the trades this offseason, it feels like. But I had a number of discussions with some GMs, and I know some other guys were looking around. I think it's just one of those deals where there's too many teams that are looking to rebuild and not enough teams that are wanting to buy those players. And so you just and it was a decent free agent class, I felt like, too. So,
see, I felt the other way. I thought the free agent class was pretty poor at certain things. I don't know. It was a weird free agent class. The other thing I'd say is that I think we've been a little stagnant. Like, we haven't had the greatest parity recently. So I think trades are getting tougher because between just all the teams that have been rebuilding for a few years, the teams that are trying to compete are just tapped out. They don't have the assets to move.
Yeah, the ones that'll be interesting are like Edmonton, Mexico City, Phoenix, like those teams that look like they might be on the cusp. Like, how do they start out the season?
Right.
If they start out hot, I could see some of those teams really going hog wild and adding a bunch of players.
Well, we could be due for a pretty big shakeup in the league structure in general, just in terms of which teams are competitive. I mean, there's some of those teams that have been bad for a while are really ready to break out. And I think we saw at least a couple moves that were kind of addressing that. So maybe we should get started on those. I think I was just gonna go in order like we usually do from oldest to newest, which means that I think the first off-season trade was Madison
Phoenix. Yep.
The first one. My notes
Yeah,
are
actually
somehow out of
happened.
order. So maybe I'll let you
Actually
start.
happened during the.
Oh,
Sorry to step on your toes there. Yeah,
no, cool.
Yeah. It actually happened during the playoffs, I believe. They made that trade. So going to Madison is Desarius. I don't know how you say his name. Slingshot.
Yeah, right.
Bomb. So Slingshot's going to Madison, center field / right field / third base, kind of all around player that is lots of contact, but not a whole lot else. And going back to Phoenix is the infamous Piano Legs. He's just been underperforming in Madison his entire career for almost a decade. Finally, Chris got rid of him and got a pretty decent piece for him. Also going to Phoenix is Luis Miguel Flores, which is just like a really good curveball, right-handed reliever that's not really got much but a really good curveball. So
no, he's going to need some work, right, to be anything. I mean, he probably ends up being like a quad A guy or a bust who doesn't develop. But I mean, he's got enough stuff that if he can bump, he's going to have to bump two things. Like, he's either going to have to get to like a control two movement bumps or a control bump and a movement bump, and even then he'll still be kind of an okay piece. I agree with your assessment of the Vegas. I don't know why he's not better than he is, but he is. His career FIP is 4.23, so you can make an argument that with I think his ERA is like 5 for his career. That Madison has not prioritized defense, so maybe you can expect him to be a middle of rotation starter. He's only. But I don't know. I wouldn't want to make that gamble.
No, I think what it is, he just gives up a lot more home runs than you typically expect a guy with that much control. He doesn't have enough strikeout potential to overcome the number of home runs he gives up. He's 25 for a lot of his 25 plus for a lot of his career. If you look at some of his best home run seasons, they're also seasons when he was injured. So, I mean, he's basically been 25 plus home runs on a 200 inning pace,
Right.
That's kind of the biggest thing.
200 inning base is probably closer to 30, and I think that's his problem. And he doesn't strike guys out enough at a rate to get away with that. He's got guys on base when he's giving up those home runs.
Right.
Again, Phoenix only needed the back end starter. As I was kind of looking through the free agency stuff and getting ready to do some team previews, they look kind of scary good. And if he can fit in and be a mid to back end starter, that's okay. On the surface, for me, this kind of looks like not a great trade for Phoenix, and it just makes you wonder. Villegas, I think, has a team option following year for 10 or so. Kirschbaum's going to be a free agent, so I wonder what he was asking for, because he's like a 2 to 3 win player. And I just wonder if he was asking for some amount that, made it reasonable to kind of trade down. He's not amazing, but he might be declining a little, but he's pretty good. So I just wonder if that was the motivation for moving him.
I would assume so. I'd assume he's probably asking for $10 million plus. He's always a player that I thought he would be better in center field than he has been. If he was a center fielder, he would be a potential all-star type center fielder. Just puts up just enough in the hit category that if he could field better, he would be a better player. But it just doesn't translate to a corner outfield, and he's not good enough at third base to make it work at third base either.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking. Are we doing grades this time around?
I don't know. I didn't really put any grades together. I think it's just kind of just trading a bad piece for a bad piece and hoping that they kind of figure it out in their new homes, really.
Yeah, like a bad piece.
Not really.
Bad piece.
Not really bad. I shouldn't say bad, but an average.
I came up with grades. I gave Madison a kind of a C++, B minus for the talent they got. And I thought organizationally for Madison, I think it's good. They got something for Villegas. They needed, they needed bodies because they've got to move some stuff around. So even if he ends up being a subpar third baseman for them, or a left fielder, which looks like where Chris is going to play him, I think that helps him out. I kind of gave Phoenix like a C on the talent, and organizationally, I gave him kind of a C+ question mark, because if Kirschbaum was asking for, a Brinks truck full of money, then taking a gamble on Villegas for him isn't really the worst move. It actually is a little better than a C+ move, so I don't know.
Yeah, and the other thing that I didn't really touch on is if Villegas has a really good season, maybe Marco can flip him at the deadline for something more. Maybe he keeps him thinking that he can get 2 seasons out of him, or he, could capitalize on this and turn him into an even better piece. Who knows?
And the other thing about this is that there's some value in warm body starting pitchers at the moment. I think there are a lot of teams I'm looking around that can't even find 5 guys with like 7s across the board to throw. So I don't know what's happened. And I think we've gotten a little thin on talent at the moment. There's a lot of young guys maybe that should be in the league that aren't, or maybe they're just developing poorly. I don't know exactly where we're going, but it seems like there are some teams that are struggling to put, 5 actual starters out there.
Yes, it seems like what's happening is those guys with the sexy ratings, the ratings that you really like, aren't developing the number of pitches that you need, and they're getting the suggested role of, like a borderline starting pitcher, and everybody's just kind of waiting to maybe call them up, waiting for them to develop those pitches to get called up. I know none of my guys last year had 7s across the board. The only guy that did was Luis Manuel Torres, and he was awful and got benched. So it's like everybody that I had in my rotation had a 6 somewhere.
Yeah, so it's one of those. We've got the league's got moving targets right now. It's a little tough to evaluate some of these things. Next up is Madison Rockville. And this is where Madison decided to unclog its first base DH logjam a little bit. I think maybe some of this was motivated by the idea that Mons Rader's going to have to move to first eventually, maybe this year. They sent Dusty Rhodes to Rockville and got back Oliver Burrell and Sean Spitz. And you won't mind me grabbing the reins on this one. Rhodes has name recognition value, and my initial thoughts on this were that maybe they didn't get a great return. But the more I look at it, I think this is actually a pretty reasonable move both ways. I mean, Rhodes is, he's 30. He's still a great contact hitter. He's reasonably signed for a few years, kind of 10 million, 12, a couple team options for 12. He was a little bit down last year, but he could improve, get bounced back some. He doesn't seem to have lost much ratings. So I mean, he's a productive player, and he's a good fit for Rockville right now with where they are. They need a nice veteran kind of contact hitting presence in that lineup. Their return is, at first it doesn't look great, but you kind of look at it more. Sean Spitz, the 21-year-old right-handed pitcher, fastball slider guy. He's not as good against lefties. He probably will not be able to pitch at the major league level because lefties are going to crush him, and righties only have so much utility. Oliver Burrell's 23 years old, and he's kind of one of those, he's got those sixes and a 5 and a 7 batting ratings. He's got some speed. He steals. He can play defense kind of everywhere. He just looks like one of those, like a decent defense first starter or a good utility guy, and he's good for that. Like he's a decent player. I think he's not something to get excited about, but I don't know that you're going to get a lot for Dusty Rhodes.
Yeah, I'm a little bit biased. Of course, I'm going to say this and watch. He's going to destroy me in the league this year. I never really have liked Dusty Rhodes as much as some people. It's not about like power for first base. I just never felt like he was, outside of that sophomore season, a good enough overall hitter to be there at first base. Yeah, he's hitting 320, 330 every year, but he's got an on base of 360, and he's got no power at all to speak of. Right. He's putting up OPSs under 800 at first base, and that just, to me, isn't good enough. And
no, and it's not really good enough for DH either, right? So
no, it's even worse for DH. I mean, at least he's a decent first baseman defensively, so you can put him out there. He'll be a plus defender and put up 100 OPS plus. That's okay.
I think his value does come in like kind of a lineup sort of thing, and I know we can get into arguments about lineups and do they matter and all those kind of things, but he's that guy that if you've got guys that can get on base, he will drive in runs. And I know that's one of those things where, like, well, anybody can drive in runs in the middle of the order by guys on base, but he'll hit the ball. Like, he'll put the bat on the ball. If you value, the guy that when you've got runners on first and second will put the ball in play, there's some value in him for that. And I think he kind of fits in that 3-hole spot, in kind of the optimized lineup where you put that high average guy that's just going to make your offense work.
Sure. The flip side of that, though, too, is he's putting the bat on the ball a lot, and with guys on base, are those going to turn into double plays?
Well, he's not a horrible runner, but yeah, there's always that fear with him. Again, like I said, he has more name recognition than he has talent. And I don't mean to say he's not talented, but he's one of those guys that probably has a little bit more of a reputation because of the way he burst onto the scene, and it looked like maybe he'd overcome his lack of power, but he just never really did.
Yeah, but if you've been in the league since his sophomore season, gosh, it was, holy cow, it's almost 7 in-game seasons ago now. If you've been around since then, you probably think of him as a well above average player when he's probably more like an average first baseman.
Right.
And I think the return was actually pretty good. I like Burrell because he could, if you stretch it, he could be an okay shortstop. And, if he fills out and can be a guy that hits 260 with a 330, 340 on base at shortstop, that's not bad. And
no, I think that's a little bit of a reach for him. But again, I think he's got a role. Like, I think he's a player that will play, 450 meaningful plate appearances every year and not hurt you with his glove, and that has a lot of value.
Yeah, and if you have a manager that you can adjust your righty lefty preference, Spitz becomes more valuable too. If you can say that you highly value that righty lefty split and only play him against righties more often, then he's a guy that has a little bit more value too. But you're right, yeah, you don't have a use for a right-handed specialist very much.
No, not really, because usually if you've got any other relievers, you're gonna have at least a few right-handed guys to work most of the time. Grades wise, I gave Madison like organizationally a B here, and Rockville kind of an A-, because I think Rockville flip parts they're not going to use for a piece they will use, and that's always good. Talent-wise, gave him a B. Gave Madison like a C+ on the talent, because those aren't exciting guys, but they're useful guys. Like they're, so this was an okay trade. This was, another kind of, this is just decent move, not exciting, but
Yeah, I would
work
agree
out
with
for both teams.
I would agree with your talent grade. I would maybe bump up Madison's organizational grade just like one level, just because of you get two guys that are borderline major league talents, and if they get one bump in some certain area, they become very useful players. And you flip a guy that is blocking some other pieces at first base, and we haven't talked about this either, that cleared space to try and re-sign Gomez. It didn't happen, but it gave him an opportunity to try.
That's true. I totally forgot about that part. So that does make a difference. It's unfortunate he couldn't get that one done sooner, because he might have been able to keep Gomez, which would have been huge for him. So we got next we got San Antonio, Louisville. Going to San Antonio is longtime starter of the Sluggers, Anastasio Quintana, and the Sluggers got back Dante Amato and Dino Bianchi. So what do you think about these guys?
I'm shocked that the genius let Quintana go. It's been his, favorite player for years, it seems like. I was shocked that he traded him. I think it's a good pickup for San Antonio. They're trying to bounce back, hoping that their pitchers stay healthy. He's a useful mid-rotation starter. If he gets lucky, he's even better, because he strikes out so many guys. With the way that stuff has improved around the league, that makes him a little less valuable. But, he's still a 200 strikeout guy. That's still a really nice piece to have. And they didn't really give up much to get him. You got a couple of AAA pitchers, really, that they traded away. So I think it's a good move for San Antonio.
Yeah, Dante Amato's a little old to be a lottery ticket, but that's essentially what he is. He is a lefty, and he's got a lot of pitches, so let's say he ends up 7.66 and you RP convert him, and ends up, a 6-motion lefty is reasonable. 6-motion righties don't work, but sometimes you can make one of the 6-motion lefty relievers kind of useful. So, and then Bianchi he's going to need a lot of control that he probably won't get to be useful. So, yeah, I have the same impression. I think my impression with this is Stu's just running out of places to put all of his ridiculous arms, and so, Quintana costs money, and that's why he went away. He's getting older.
I've got a question for you with Amato. So it wasn't really answered in the forums. With the reliever conversion, is it the talent or the current talent or the potential that gets used?
Someone asked this a while ago, and Rex said both. In that when he does both of them for the potential, he adds up the potential ratings and does the divide by 3 twice
and adds that to the potential.
And adds that to the potential, and for the current, he uses the current values. So, where that gets me wondering is, man, should we have been biting the bullet on these non-developing changeups a lot sooner?
Yeah,
right, when they can still, because for a 28-year-old guy, it doesn't matter what his potential is if it's higher. He's not going to develop to it. But some of these 21, 22-year-old guys looking at it going, 1 out of 10 changeup, maybe I'll just punt that pitch.
And yeah, that makes me wonder about one of the guys that
you could add it. 10 changeup, that's like, I think that's like 180 in-game points. That's putting.
Yeah, you're adding 30 points to it.
You're adding
all pitches.
20 to 30 points to your other pitches just by sacrificing that, and they might develop into that 30 points. We maybe should be doing this more.
Interesting.
Grades here are pretty boring. I gave Louisville an A organizationally just because they moved a part they didn't need and they got something for it. That's what you get an A for. And then San Antonio get kind of a B minus. The only reason I did this is because you could get a better grade normally. I just don't know that San Antonio needs to be adding pitchers at all. Maybe they could flip him, but I really, and I like Cal Russo. We were supposed to record a podcast a couple seasons back, and had some technical difficulties and never got it done. And I got to talk to him about his philosophy a little bit, and it makes sense. I know what he's trying to do. He's just dragging this out for so long that it is going to be so bad when he finally decides to rebuild. He's scraping the cupboards bare every year.
He's already missed the boat on those 2 pitchers as far as getting any value for him. So I understand why at this point you just say we're going to try and give it another go. He didn't trade anything away, so I can't, fault him for. It's not like he gave up anything that's going to ever matter to them.
No, he didn't. It's not like he didn't make himself worse. He's just delaying. It just feels like he's delaying the inevitable. And whatever. As long as you're having fun doing it, I don't really care how you run your team, as long as it's not atrociously hurting the league. It's like the sort of you always kind of wonder, well, maybe the rebuilding and blah blah blah, and having an amazing monster team is less important to him than managing his team and having fun doing it. That's totally fine. Or maybe I'm just an idiot and my evaluation of things makes no sense because he's proven me wrong. I don't know how many times when I thought he couldn't win with the roster he had, and either made the playoffs or nearly did. So what do I know?
Yeah, it'll be a lot more difficult now with Havana, though.
Yeah, you're next. And I don't really know how I always manage to get my notes this out of order, but I did. This is you in Vancouver, right?
Yep.
We're next. And I don't know where my notes went, but that's okay. This is pretty straightforward. I can do it without them. Yeah, this is just you. You're going all in. You've got this roster together, and you are just patching your starting rotation as best you can every year. And I think this is a good move to do that. Sempa looks done. He really does. He's lost some stuff. He's lost his elite command, and he's gone down to just really damn good command. And that is probably not going to get it done. And it didn't look like it was getting it done last year. And so you are kind of looks like you're just taking that shot that even though iChart also has lost some stuff, he's still pretty darn good, and his contract isn't much of a risk. And if he holds out for you, great. And basically you sold Kuan Yin Xiao? Is that how you say that? I think it's a zhe sound.
Yeah.
Anyway, who could be a starter? He's a lefty, so again, if he gets a little motion bump out of this, maybe. Great RP conversion candidate if that ends up being what's happened. Weird that his curveball's the thing that hasn't developed. That's kind of strange, but he's not a huge piece that you're losing that's going to be some major disaster, and that's kind of a little bit of a motivation for Vancouver to make this deal, and I thought it was a good move all around.
Yeah, he's actually a righty. He's one of those odd pitchers that bats left and throws right.
Oh, was I looking at the wrong thing? Oh, he is a righty. Mm-hmm. Then he needs more motion.
Yeah. It really comes down to Vancouver picking up a pitcher that if he comes back and pitches well in Vancouver's park, which will help him out, he could possibly get like a second round comp pick for him, and a shot in the dark with Chow or however to say his name. Yeah, I thought when I picked him up a few years ago, I thought, oh, his changeup is a 10. That curveball is going to develop. It's just a matter of time. It'll be coming anytime here, and it hasn't really developed. So he was a piece that I don't think it's going to hurt me too much to see that go. Plus, Vancouver's looking to rebuild, and they get $16 million off of their books. The thing with iChart is he can't get a comp pick for him this year. He has to accept next year's option and hope that he holds out through age 36 and has a good season at age 36 to get any kind of
right. And that doesn't have a whole lot of value for him if he's deciding to rebuild. And that's the thing I'm not sure about. I yesterday did the Frick review of free agency with Fred Holmes. And he was telling me he and Brett are pretty good friends, and they're really good friends and talk all the time. And he was saying that Brett really hasn't indicated that he's all in on selling, but it sure as heck looks like it. And it's not a bad move. Brett unfortunately has just had his window completely screwed by pitching injuries every year for 5 years, and so he's got enough talent that what he's moving away with, he can do a really quick, efficient rebuild here. And if that's what he's doing, these moves make sense, but if it's not totally what he's doing, it made it kind of hard for me to grade him because I'm not entirely certain what he's doing with all the moving parts then. But that's okay. I don't know everything.
Yeah, with Brett too, I think Brett's not going to move a player unless he's getting the value that he wants out of him. That's why he's had Henson for a decade. And he's not going to just move guys for no reason just because he wants to rebuild. He's going to try to get some kind of value out of him. So I think he's just parting out the pieces that he can and hoping that eventually the market comes around to him. It's just, I don't think it is right now.
There's also something to be said for not just, you don't necessarily have to go, trade away everything of value and be terrible to retool your team. You don't have to completely blow it up. You don't I mean, with the volatility in players that you draft, it's more about accumulating a number of assets than it is getting early picks and that kind of stuff. So, no, you don't have to suck. So.
Right. Yeah. If you can get half a dozen to 10 guys that are all, they're okay prospects, and you just hope that one of them bumps into a really good prospect versus drafting at the top of the draft for 2 years, and those guys are more likely to lump and fall apart than they are to stay steady or get better.
Right. And if you can stay moderately competitive, you don't have to dig yourself out of the financial hole when your revenue tanks either. I mean, that's the other thing, is that if you can maintain a revenue stream by staying at least reasonably competitive, you don't have to deal with that issue that Phoenix has had to go through and Havana's had to go through, where they maybe could have broken out a year or two sooner, but they had to spend 2 years getting the budget high enough to sign any free agents.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yep.
Next up is Mexico City and Havana. I think this trade I didn't really care about. Actually, it says grades, don't care. That's what my note says. Dusty Harmon's a AAA player, and Kanzahiko Arai can't throw strikes. Maybe he could be a loogie if he bumps maybe his control a little bit, and that's that. Got any other thoughts about that?
Yeah, I think he can. I think Kazuhuki can be an okay loogie. He'll be all right. He'll improve what Havana has in their bullpen, and it cost Havana nothing. And whatever. It wasn't really like a piece that Mexico City was going to be using anytime soon. So you move.
Now, the next move is another one that makes it seem like Vancouver is kind of blowing it up a little bit. Although that's a younger player, so it's kind of weird. They only got a player that's a couple years younger, but they sent Brett Compton to Mexico City, their shortstop. They got back a first base prospect in Scott Harper and another shortstop prospect in Ismael Pena. Where's he from? He is from Costa Rica. There's a tilde. That's a Pena. Okay, cool. I guess that's right. We can't type tildes in the forums. So what do you think about, I don't know. I like this trade overall. You got some specific thoughts on it?
The one thing for me with Compton is he's only 22. He still hasn't even hit arbitration yet. If you rebuild, this guy could still be your shortstop.
He could still be. And it's kind of weird, right? That's when I first looked at this, I was like, you traded a scarce position, a good player in a scarce position for a not quite as, he's a reasonably good player in a not as scarce position, and that's kind of worrisome for a rebuild. But, there's some things to not like about Brett Compton. Vancouver's not particularly easy to hit in, but Brett Compton's really not hit at all. He's got on-base percentages around 300, averages in the 260 to low 270 range. Not much pop. He hasn't necessarily defended quite as well as that range makes you look, because he fumbles the ball a little bit. He does not have the greatest hands, and he's kind of got like a little bit of a subpar arm for shorts. So he's one of those guys that when you start to pick him apart, maybe he's got some more. Don't get me wrong, he's a good player. I'd love to have him. He's a good everyday regular, but maybe he's not quite as good as he looks. I don't know. I was trying to find a reason.
Yeah, I mean, if Brett's is blowing it up and ends up trading everybody, this is a good move, because you get a guy that has absolutely no service time and probably is another year or two away from the major leagues for a guy that's going to hit arbitration at the end of this year. So if you don't like what Compton is going to be paid as an ARB guy, and you're right, it's not like he's torn the cover off the ball by any means, but a shortstop with above average defense that has average offense,
average-ish kind of offense, is very valuable. I just don't, but Scott Harper's a decent player too, right? He doesn't look, the one thing I don't like about him is he looks kind of more of a DH than a first baseman, but he's not a horrible defensive first baseman. Vancouver's got a park that kind of suits right-handers fairly well, and
and he looks like a guy that's going to hit. His right-handed split is going to be what his potential is, and everything else is going to be a bonus against lefties. So if that's the case, if he's a guy that's a 9 power or 9 contact against lefties, and he's, 8 contact and 8 power against righties, that's a pretty good first baseman, or DH even. So he's definitely going to be a starter if he reaches those potentials, and he's close to it. It's just tough. I mean, Brett Compton looks very similar to what Braun has been for me. The one thing has been the difference is on base. He just hasn't walked as much as Braun has.
Well, and I think Braun was a better defender. I don't know that he's anymore because he's lost a little range, but I think he just
Yeah. He had like 11 error. He doesn't make very many errors. So yeah, he has been a much better defender than Compton, but it just on the surface Compton looks really good, but like you said, you can pick him apart for days, and Harper could be a very good
solid.
Very good hitter. So
Pena's nothing to scoff at either. He's not, he would be a weak starter if you had to start him, but he's got a little contact. He's got okayish power for someone playing up the middle. And the thing about him is he can defend everywhere. So I think he's going to end up on someone's big league roster getting 300 plate appearances a year, just playing both corner outfield positions, playing all over the infield. And again, there's value in that. So he got a player back too.
Yeah, and the other thing that
not just a throw in.
Sorry to interrupt. The other thing that he hasn't been tapped into yet is his outfield defense. He can be a very good left and right field, and even fill in at times at center field. So he's a guy that could play any single position on the field but catcher. So yeah, there's definitely value. He's going to be on a big league roster for like 7 or 8 years, just toiling away.
Yeah. And I gave these guys both kind of organizational A- range and kind of B pluses for the talent. I just thought this was a nice. It's a good move. It was a great. Oh, in Mexico City, this is a really good move. They filled the spot they needed. Gave a prospect they don't need. They've got a logjam at first base. And then again, I am never entirely certain what direction Brett's going, but it does look like a rebuild. And this isn't a bad move. I mean, it gets him. It's not. I shouldn't say it's not even just a bad move. It's a decent, solid move. It just, again, I think we all get a little excited about shortstops, like you said, that can kind of hit league averages or just below and play good defense, because there just aren't that many of them. It's a hard spot to fill. So, and we're repeating ourselves now. That's okay. We do that a lot. You're next. This is the one everybody's waiting for, right? This is the big, giant, and I thought I would have to do a lot of analysis about this deal, but I don't. It just makes sense. It's just one of those deals you look at and you go, okay, yeah, that's what they should have done. It's I like it a little better for Las Vegas than you, but not tremendously so.
You can let me have it.
You want it? Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's Alfredo Martinez is so freaking good when he's playing. And again, I feel like you've made the comments multiple times that you have this amazing team, you have this amazing offense right now. It's won you 2 titles. You have enough rickety good pitchers that you've been able to have enough of them healthy to get to the playoffs and win in the playoffs, and you're kind of reloading just kind of until you run this into the, as far as you can make it, and that makes sense. And Sandcastle for Martinez is a clear upgrade. They're both a little injury prone. Maybe Martinez is a little bit worse, but to me that's that's just a better hitter, even though Sandcastle's nothing to scoff at still, somehow, amazingly. Braun, the thing with Braun is paying him, and I don't know how much of that was a motivation for you, but oh no, you did extend him, and you extended him, and he's getting pricey, and he's dropped a little bit of range, I think, right, and he's kind of a 3-to-1 player, 5 in a good year, but he's probably getting to that point where he's not really going to be a 5-win guy all the more. He slipped a tad. You have other options in the infield. And the player you got back, the shortstop you got back, in another player whose name I can't pronounce, is probably just as good defensively. And, he's got 6s and 7s across the board. He won't be an amazing bat, but he won't be someone that you cannot play, that you put in the lineup and you just go, oh God, I need to get his bat out of the lineup. Like and he could even be kind of almost average-ish. So, you want to try to find spots where this doesn't make sense, but it's really fine. It's one of those moves I'd never make because I have a problem making this kind of a big gamble, or what feels like a gamble. But I don't know that it really is. I mean, you upgraded one spot and you downgraded another, and Rec did the opposite. You had to throw in Baca, which, Rec said that was a big thing in letting him get this deal done. I don't know that I'm all that high on Baca. He he has the hitting tools to hit, but right now it doesn't look like he will be able to play anything besides subpar third base. He won't be a bad player, but he's not amazing. And then Cortez is kind of an okay-ish looking corner outfielder prospect, but not much beyond that. So there's not a whole lot to really beat you up on here. I think maybe if you just look at the overall talents moving, you come out a little bit behind. But if you look at where you guys' organizations are, this makes total sense. There's nothing wrong with this move.
Yeah, I would argue a little bit with Baca. I mean, the arm is a little bit low for a third baseman, but the range and the errors are not, bad for a third baseman, and turn double play doesn't really matter for a third baseman. So I still think he's going to be an 8 or better rating at third base.
It depends if it's a high 6 or a low 6, because if you look at the elite third baseman in this league, or even the good third baseman in this league, they've all got error rates in the 7 and 8. They don't seem to get as much benefit out of range. Everybody benefits from range, but I would rather flip those numbers. I would rather have 6 range, 7 error on my third baseman. Like, I want my third baseman to have some of the best hands on my team. And what I've noticed with guys I've had is that once that error rating starts to drop and get in that 6.5 range, it really starts to kill their effectiveness over at the hot corner. So that's what I don't like about him. But he's a fine player. If I had him have to be a starter on my team, I would be okay with that. I just wonder if his glove is not quite as good as we think it's going to be. I don't know.
Sure, and the other thing is, what is that 7? You don't know what those 7s are. That's the other big thing. If those 7s are high 7s, then an average glove is going to be okay. He'll still be a really valuable player. If they're low 7s, then that becomes where it becomes an issue. That's where it will become an issue.
Right.
The other piece that I had a hard time, really, when he sent it back, it made me hesitate for a second, was just Cortez. Just because not that he's going to be a star, but it really looked like he was going to become a major league player. So,
Cortez, I'm looking at him more now. He could actually end up being kind of valuable, only because it looks like no one might be able to defend in this league at all.
Right.
And if he is twice as valuable defensively, and left-hander, and those 6s are high 6s, as we keep coming back to this concept, he could end up like someone like like Francisco Flores or like Luis Freda, like one of those guys that just has a great glove in a corner and just keeps finding a place to play. So yeah, he's got some value. I think, like I said, I think you came out behind here from a talent standpoint. I just don't. But I don't think that's the wrong move necessarily. I think this is you just, again, loading up as best you can to take another run at it. And I think that's probably the thing you should be doing with your team.
Yeah, it was, I think it's difficult for both of us. I really had a hard time giving up Braun, but the biggest thing that worries me is if he drops any range or he drops any hitting ability, suddenly he becomes very expensive for what he produces. He's not a 3.5 win player. He's a 2.5 win player. And now you're paying him, $10+ million to be a 2-win player. And that becomes difficult. But if he doesn't, then he's going to be a good pickup for Las Vegas for a long time. So.
No, and those decisions are always tough to make. Again, these are moves I can never make because I can never let go of my own guys like that. I will just run them into the ground and feel good about looking at their name every day.
Yeah, basically, I'm just betting that Alfredo Martinez is healthy from October on. So right. I'm just hoping at least every other year he's healthy from October on.
Next one up also involves you and Randy. And I'm just going to assume this is because you guys are both addicted to trading, because I don't know why you would I don't care about Bernardo Garcia, and I do not care about Joseph Cartridge, and I don't know why either of you cared about them at all enough to even talk about getting it back in the Rule 5 draft. Why?
I'm obsessed with depth, and I had all those outfielders that I drafted.
Okay, you can be obsessed with draft depth. With the injuries you've had, you can be obsessed with depth. I think that's probably okay.
So I had Cartridge, and I really like his options, that he has 3 options and that he can hit lefties. So I'm hoping to kind of throw him in AAA for this year and only call him up if I need to. But he can just kind of, as guys kind of get older and more expensive, you need somebody to come in and be a guy that plays 150 plate appearances, 200 plate appearances against left-handed pitchers. I just have the high splits. So that's the biggest thing. I need to be able to get Rocky off the field sometimes against lefties.
Yeah, I guess that's fair.
And Garcia was just a quad A level pitcher. So,
I've done looked at every free agent signing and writing down notes, and now I'm going through all these trades and writing down notes, and I get to one like this, and I just hate you guys so much. It's like I've got to look up these players, and I look at them like I don't care about them at all. Like Brett used to do this all the time. Like he was for years. It was the just every trade had 2 players that mattered being traded and 16 minor league guys that would never play in the majors switching organizations. And it was just like, God damn it, just why?
Yeah, I really try to get these types of guys in the Rule 5 draft, like guys that are going to be on your roster with a purpose for a long time. They might not be stars, but, I've picked up a couple of guys from your minor league system. Arroyo was the catcher that's hitting for
minutes. And I just couldn't pick which I had up. They work, and Arroyo was one I wanted to hold on to. But I just had too many catchers, and I protected. I was like, who might not get taken, and I protected the wrong ones. I don't know. Let's talk about Havana, Vancouver here because I have a question for you. Because Vancouver got Tony Charles for Carlos Delgado. What do you think about Tony Charles? Tony Bouet Charles.
I think he's he could be an average right fielder. I mean, he's a decent bat. He's got plenty of speed. He's going to be somebody that could hit 280, 270, get on base 320, 330, and run like the wind when he's on base.
His speed's going to have to carry him, and we're talking the high 7, low 7 thing. I don't know what that is. I don't like him. I just look at the guy and I'm like, he just looks like somebody that you will be perennially disappointed in.
The other thing is, what does defense look like in 5 years when he's 24 years old? If he's 6'7",
good point,
and he's a 7, he's a 7 right fielder, 7 left fielder, and he's developed his hit tool. I mean, he doesn't look like he's going to be a star unless he gets some ratings bumps. But, I mean, that's a guy that could be a starting player, and it's not a great player, but I wonder what the defense looks like lead wide. If the defense holds up and people continue to find really good defenders in the outfield and, he's below average, then he's not somebody you want to start. But the other thing is, I mean, what's Delgado? Is Delgado, he's a good reliever, but is he, what is a good reliever worth when it comes to a position player?
Right. Yeah, and I don't necessarily think this was a bad trade in terms of the talent they got back and forth. I just don't really know what to make of Charles because I just don't like him when I look at him. But then I'm like, well, I mean, he doesn't strike out. He's got okay contact. He's really fast. He's got a great steal rating, and he might be able to defend. So I just have trouble evaluating this trade.
I don't know. What's Vancouver's stadium's hit rating? I'll look it up.
They're almost as bad at a pitcher's park as me, but they allow right-handers to hit a little bit more.
Is it all home runs, though, or is it also...
I think it's everything across the board speed up a little bit. So.
A 950 hit for right-handers, so that's not too bad.
Yeah, so I mean, Brett plays to his stadium. I don't, like I said, I don't think this is don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to poop all over Tony Charles. I just don't know what to make of him. Part of me thinks he's just going to be a scrub, and part of me can see how he could actually be kind of valuable. And the important part for him is that he has the personality class prankster, which my mid-season report is telling me that I always need to find one of. So maybe he'll be the secret sauce to Vancouver's resurgence. Who knows?
That would be pretty good.
Yeah. It's always funny. It's like we could use somebody to help loosen up the clubhouse. Like you get that stupid report every year, and you look at the league. There's 6 guys, in the whole freaking OOTP that have like prankster or goofball or whatever the name for it they're going to call it each year is. And it's like, why is this a thing that every team gets told by their bench coach? We got one more, I think, and then we're about done. And this is Long Beach and Vancouver. And Brett's been very busy. Kind of wrapping up with a thud here, which is always nice for the last one to not matter. James Cunningham can't play anymore, except unless you want to just punt offense and go still amazing 31-year-old center field defense, which isn't bad. Horrible idea, but he's not worth $5.8 million. I would love to have him as part of a platoon, just rest my left-handed center fielder, but not for – oh, you know what? He's waived. What am I doing? I should be picking him up. I'm going to go submit a waiver claim when this podcast is over. I have money. Well, welcome, James Cunningham, your new California – wait, no, I don't have a roster spot. Maybe James Cunningham, your new California Crusader. Right-handed center fielder. Who knows? I don't know. But Long Beach got Domingo Barnard, who doesn't matter, right? Like just, again, maybe he could be a loogie, but he's 22 and that curveball probably won't develop. And he can't hit the broadside of a barn. Well, I shouldn't say that. Like, there are guys who really can't hit the broadside of a barn. He just struggles to make out the barn.
Yeah. It's really a shame he's not one of those guys with that one rating changeup that you could just kind of like bump up his velocity a little bit to help out his stuff and turn him into a couple-year loogie. Right, but he just doesn't. He's not quite there. So this is this looked like Long Beach dumping salary. It's kind of what it looked like in Vancouver. Kind of said, yeah, I guess I'm kind of interested in Cunningham. I didn't know if he intended. I thought maybe he intended to play him, but he's got him waived right now, I think. Yeah, I kind of assumed that he was trying to catch that Frank Thomas lightning in a bottle again that he had a few years ago. $5.8 million. Like if you're just gonna punt offense and have like an elite, like Gold Glove center fielder, it's not the worst plan in the world. Like he's just incredible out there. So, it's I don't know. We'll see if he is waived, right? I'm not just making this up. I haven't gotten to waivers. Maybe he's DFA'd. I'm an idiot. Let me see here. Waiver wire. Yeah, he must be DFA. He's DFA'd. He's not waived. Okay, so maybe he's going to play him. Damn it. Well, I've actually been trying to get my hands on him for years because I keep having these little lefty slap hitting center fielders, but like they can't. They're righties. So I'm an idiot. And I talked about nothing for a while. I don't know. So that's it. So we got through all those trades, and not the most exciting one of these we did, but it was good to have you here for this because I think you were involved in some of the more important ones. Definitely the most important one. Yeah, that'll be an interesting one to see where that develops for both of our teams. It could, if Martinez gets hurt a lot, that could really submarine our future, but we'll see. All right. Well, maybe we'll get back together sometime during the season and do another one of these. It was great having you again, Tyler, and I hope everybody enjoyed listening. Yeah, thanks for having me. It was a lot of fun.